everybody, and welcome to this week's In Conversation With. Today I'm joined with Cecilia Milburn. We're really glad to have her with us, and we'll ask her some questions and see what we can find out from Cecilia. So thanks for coming today. It's really great to have you with us, and you're a busy person, so I'm really glad to be able to get you in the seat. It's great.
I know it's taken a few false starts, but we got there eventually, Lynn. That's good.
And that's great. So just to let because a lot of people will know you, a lot of people won't know you, so would you like to say a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing that job, and a bit about your journey?
Yeah. So my name's Cecilia Milburn, and I'm currently the Assistant Director of Children's Services for Barnardo's in Northern Ireland. The title sounds much better than it actually is, but basically my line manager is the head of Barnardo's for Northern Ireland, and then there's a team of 6 of us who manage the services across the country. So my patch is technically Belfast, and that suits me because I like to have a wee bit of separation between work and home, but I do have a couple of services that are right across the region. So I've been in the job 2 years. I'll maybe talk a wee bit about how I ended up there as we go along, but it's a fascinating job. So lots of different types of services. A children's home, a specialist children's home that we run for very young children, and we work to get children back into family life with foster carers, so that's really kind of special service. Lots of services that have a focus on what we call newcomer children and young people, so maybe have come with families who've come from overseas to work, but also asylum seeker and refugee children and young people, and some really interesting bits and pieces of work in there too, and then some services for children with disabilities. So really broad, but that's great, you know, and part of what I suppose what motivates me is just that bit about being able to help people in need, and I'm not really fussed what your need is. You know, if I can do something to kind of make things a little bit better, then that's great. So it's good. Great. So you only been doing that for 2 years, and you're doing something before that, I'm sure. I was, So my background is in social work. So I trained as a social worker. It's over 23 years ago.
Oh, and you do not look young enough.
I do, old enough.
I kind of feel funny there.
I know. So that's it. So somebody did laugh and say, I was saying about having a 20-year-old son, and somebody did say to me the other week, "Oh, whatever face cream," and I was like, "No, that's just because I've got chubby cheeks."
That's how I say too.
It's great. So so I trained as a social worker in Scotland, and I'm originally from Northern Ireland, but I went off to be a student when I was 18 to Dundee, and did a few other things. Ended up doing social work, and worked, I suppose, as a very traditional kind of social worker in Scotland, doing lots of the kind of things that everybody imagines social workers do. So bringing children into the care system, doing child protection investigations, and really very heavy duty, very demanding work. And I did that for about 6 years, and 6-7 years. And by that point we had our first son, and life was just it was a very challenging job, and at that point we started to look around and think, what might we want to do? And at that point there was an opportunity to come, I say back to Northern Ireland. My husband, who is Scottish, says he didn't come back anywhere. I just brought him, and I ended up working in the voluntary sector in a charity in Larne, and we were trying to buy a house, and we ended up with a house in Carrickfergus. So we've been here 16 years. And my other son is technically Carrickfergus born and bred. So that we have much discussion about that in our house. So a couple of Scottish people, a couple of Northern Irish people.
All in the one house.
All in the one house. Great when Six Nations rugby's on. So so I've worked in the kind of social work, social care, and that sort of traditional kind of social work, then some family support work in Larne. And then I did 10 years nearly in total with a charity called Click Sargent. So that was children and young people with a cancer diagnosis. And I managed their services in Northern Ireland. And then we brought a service called Home from Home to Northern Ireland. So that was accommodation for families to stay in when their children come for treatment. And Northern Ireland didn't have that at that point. So families were coming from, well, basically everywhere in Northern Ireland, and their kids all have to come to the Royal, or the teenagers come to the City Hospital. And so we got Home From Home up and running. So,
Brilliant.
and then I went on to manage their Home From Home services across the UK. So for a number of years, I was working out of my spare room and hopping on planes.
Yes.
and everybody, in fact, my Twitter handle for a while was Travelling Mum.
Yes,
because I was
when I first got to know you, that was. Remember you?
So I was always like kind of would have been in Scotland, England, you know, in all different parts working. So, and then I suppose I felt like I had kind of done what I needed to do there. We'd got that service running really well, and then I saw this opportunity with Barnardo's, and they don't come up very often. And to be perfectly honest, I thought, you know what, I'll stick in an application. If I get an interview, that'd be brilliant, because it'd be a really good experience. And then when I really think I might be able to get that job, I'll know what I'm doing. And so I went for the interview, and they phoned and offered me the job, and I was just like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. So, do you know, and we, like, I suppose if you're a person of faith and you know, you do believe that God has plans and purposes for your life, you know, and it can sound a bit cheesy, but at the same time, you know, when an opportunity like that comes up, you sort of think, well, you know, okay, am I the right person for this job? This panel obviously think I am, so I'll give it a go. And it has been, so I started there in September 2019, and obviously then COVID hit in the March of 2020. So and it has been the joke was, it was already I had a difficult start. There was a few things going on that I needed to sort out, and my colleagues used to joke and say, well, you're having a real baptism of fire. And by about January, I was like, do you know what? And I used to say, it doesn't really feel like a baptism of fire anymore. It feels like a fiery lake, and I'm not entirely sure where the shore is, because it was just really difficult. Yeah. Then COVID hit, and you've got to, lots of my services had to keep running. We've got to keep these small children safe in a children's home, and had to keep staff safe, and do all of that. And suddenly I'm the expert on COVID protocols and method statements and risk assessments and all of that. And that sense of responsibility, you know, for keeping people safe. But it is a huge privilege, and I just think my career, if you like, work life, has always felt like a huge privilege. You know, you get to get to meet people in some of their most darkest times, do you know, or to get to step into children's lives when actually it feels like there's not a lot of hope, and to be able to do something. I might not be able to make everything okay, in fact most of the time I can't, but if I can do something, that feels like a real privilege, you know. So that's kind of been my career journey very quickly.
And you mentioned your faith, you know, and sort of finding your place with your faith, but how would you say your faith has maybe informed or guided your journey, or held you when it was difficult?
I think so I grew up in a church family. My dad was a minister. He only retired a few years ago, and I suppose like I watched, our house was, you know, it was a busy place, and it was the kind of place where people did turn up, you know, if they were looking for help, and, you know, and there would be these late night phone calls, and there would be, you know, and somebody, you know, dad having to dash off because somebody had died, or people turning up because their marriage was in trouble, or their kids had run away, and just all of that sense of, you know, that I suppose we grew up understanding that life was difficult for people, and whilst we had a level of privilege, I suppose, you know, a protection, if you like, from some of that, still that sense of, you know, and we would have moved, so, you know, and we moved a number of times whenever I was at school, and, you know, and that sense of being quite often the newcomer or the incomer, and having to make a set of friends and settle and make a life for yourself somewhere new, that was kind of part of my upbringing. So I think all of that kind of shaped who I was, I suppose, and my personality, and that interest in people, and kind of how you make relationships and form connections with people, and being brought up in that sense of that. Well, I suppose like the really old-fashioned phrase, like, but for the grace of God go I, that was always in our heads, do you know, that really tough times can fall on anybody, and that's absolute sense of not judging. It's not about a judgment, it's not about, so those values, if you like, that became social work values, were always there. So yeah, in terms of how it's kept me going, I think there were definitely times in the early days where I just thought, God, I don't think I can do this. This is really hard work. And there were a lot of times, particularly whenever Ewan was really small and I was working part-time and paying out for childcare and doing all of that, and I just thought, actually, I would earn more money working in Tesco's, do you know? And that was genuinely the situation at that time. So, and then it was like, then people would also say to me, I couldn't do your job. And I think it was that sense of, well, I knew I could do my job, and I knew I could do it well, and I knew I was, to the best of my ability, I was doing it from an ethical place and I suppose a moral place, and therefore almost not an obligation, but a bit like a vocation, you know. If you can do it, then you really should, you know. And actually, Cecilia, if you can go to bed at night and sleep, 9 people out of 10 couldn't hear what you hear and go to bed and sleep. It's not that I didn't care, but just I was made that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally does.
And now my job is really stretching, and yes, it's challenging, but you know, and funny, I said to my husband a couple of weeks ago, why am I doing this job again? And he said, because you can.
I know, that you can.
And that is, I think that is about faith. I don't know how people do. So I work with some fabulous people who don't have faith, and some who have different faith and everything in between. I don't think I could do my job without faith, in the sense that I need to be able to pray, and I need to be able to have that sense of, I suppose, that sense of working in a bigger purpose, and having some of that thing as well, which is understanding that this world is not quite how God made it to be, and so therefore it's not my responsibility to sort everything, you know. So God is God and I'm not. And you know, and so that bit about control what I can control, and then everything else, I can't control other people, I can't control lots of other things, but I can show up, I can do my job and leave that with God, and that for me is hugely helpful. So
it's quite interesting, because I don't know if you maybe don't know this or not about me, but I grew up in a church family too. So my parents are pastors. So totally, we didn't move. Well, we did one move, but we didn't do lots of moves. But we moved when I was in 5th year. We moved to Carrick to plant the church here. So, and in those days, I mean, there only was the phone, and in these days still, there's no way to travel to Ballyclare or Temple Patrick from Carrick. So nothing has changed actually since I was 16, which is a long time ago. But you know, that sense of like you are moving away and starting again. And it's interesting because we are probably in similar types of work, you know, in similar ways, and a lot of what you're saying really resonates with how I would think about myself, you know, and I think that makes sense, you know, when you've grown up in a family who, you know, you see all the sides, you know, you see and you recognise that, you know, we grew up in a family that you are protected from things, but you've seen it all, so you were so you're protected in ways you didn't experience the stuff, but you saw it and you knew it existed, and then that gave you, you know, you had the means to not judge then, because you had that other, you know, sense of what life is like for people, and that could easily be us.
Absolutely,
you know, any of us at any time.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a funny balance, isn't it? Because that sense of not just spectating, because that makes it sound quite cold, but you're able to see and understand that, and certainly that for me the bit is always that people's lives are not what they seem, you know. So this reminder of, you know, that we only ever see the kind of finished movie of people's lives. We never see all the, you know, the cut-ins that were left behind. And I suppose now with social media and all of the rest of it, that's so important to remember that what we see is a really edited version of people's lives, and you have no idea what's going on underneath it all. But at that sense, still having that really firm, safe place that we came home to, and really appreciating that, you know, but a really strong sense of social justice, you know, and like I have only come to appreciate fairly recently, you know, at one point in the late 70s, my dad was the minister in North Belfast, and he's originally from England. He came here in 1969, and he stayed. Like it's, you know, when you think about it now, it seems really strange, you know. But I met my mum and he stayed, and so they were outsiders in North Belfast, right at the height of the Troubles. But they took a stand, you know, in terms of trying to do cross-community stuff and trying to really live out their faith.
Yeah.
And I didn't really appreciate that was actually quite counter the culture of the time,
much.
you know. So we grew up with this sort of sense of understanding where we were living, not necessarily buying into everything that was going on in the culture around us, being able to stand firm on things that we felt were just not ethical, not right, you know, and having principles around that. So that puts you in a good place to do youth work or social work. Or,
that's it. They become your framework of life. You know, whatever you go into, you carry those things with you because you can see all the sides. And I think that's, you know, it's a great, it leads to empathy. You know, where you can just sort of have a sense of like, you know, what that, I kind of nearly know what that feels like because I've seen that at the darkest point, as you say, and it's a privilege to walk that with people where you can hold their darkness, you know, as they start to unpick that and find light, you know, for themselves. So that's it's an interesting story.
It is.
We should tell everybody, like Cecilia and I have met 3 times in our life, but we've known each other for a very long time through Andrea Howard. We should give her credit.
We'll give Andrea a wee bit of a shout out. So
yes. Andrea's one of the pastors at Antrim Coast Vineyard. So yes, we have Andrea in common. So hi Andrea, you better be watching.
Hello Andrea. Hopefully she'll tune in and maybe give us a like and what is it the kids say? Like and subscribe. We can't subscribe, can we, Lynn? But
you can to the YouTube channel. Yes.
You could. So there we go.
Hit that like button
and all of that. I can't. Like my kids will now just be going. Please stop.
Oh, shut up,
please stop. Yes.
We've done it now, it's too late.
But no, it turns out we've lots and lots of people in common, and I suppose like that, you know, and we're also involved in Positive Carrickfergus.
Yes, that's right.
And that for me, do you know, like we talk about, you know, for me joining and being part of Positive Carrickfergus is about, some of that is about trying to make sense of what it means for me to be part of Carrickfergus.
Right, yes.
Do you know, and what does it mean to live here and be here? Yeah. This is now the longest I've lived anywhere. Okay. Do you know, if you think about it in that sense, and I'm bringing up kids in the town, and so what does it mean to be part of the town and have big dreams for the future of the town and for, you know, but then you suddenly realise, you know, I sort of say, oh, well, I'm still a blow-in. And then I realise, actually, I know an awful lot of people in the town now and in the community and through lots of different ways. And that connectedness, you know, which can be sometimes a bit unnerving for people, but at the same time, it's a really good thing. And when you want to do something good together. Yeah,
because we had an experience recently where we were all able to contribute to something, and there was stuff in the town that wasn't great that was happening, but quite quickly, a few of us were able to rally and spot the other people who were rallying and come together. Absolutely. And I think that's what something is really great about our town, is that people from all walks of life can rally, you know, and create something really positive and life-giving when there's something like not life-giving happening. Yeah, and I think that's been great.
So spot the allies, spot the people who are looking, you know, and to like, you know, to go back to that sort of, you know, like a Bible idea, you know, people who are looking for the peace and the prosperity of the, you know, the area they're living in, you know, and I suppose that, you know, we were talking about faith, and that has been a growing thing for me, kind of understanding that that's part of being in the Christian faith, is that you do want peace and prosperity for the area that you live in. It's not just about me, and it's not. I think traditional Northern Irish Christianity has been, or Protestant Christianity has been, about personal faith and just about me. Yeah. But actually, it's bigger than that. So yes, it's personal, and yes, you know you sign up in some shape or form.
Yes, you have your spirituality in that sense, but
that actually, for me, I suppose my reading of, like, for example, my reading of Jesus' teaching is that it's about community as well, and it's about what. So, like, there's a verse in the Old Testament in Micah that talks about that, you know, what does God require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And then Jesus says, you know, well, what you did for me, or what you did for the least of these, you did for me. And the people say, well, we didn't go and visit you in prison, and we didn't feed you when you were hungry. And he said, no, but you did go and do those things for other people, and when you did that for other people, it was like you were doing them for me. And that is very much part of what I suppose motivates me in my work, and I get to do that in work. I think that's a privilege, you know. So anyway.
So last question, if you could give your younger self some advice or a tip, what would it be?
Do you know, I said to somebody I was in a conversation online just yesterday, and were saying about being in your 40s, and this person had said, well, I'm loving being in my 40s. And I said, yeah, no, actually, so am I. And I said, it's almost like I'm making peace with who I am. Yes. It's like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Yeah. Have done with it, do you know? So, so I'm not quite sure about advice to younger self, but I think it's that bit about, yes, you're chatty and talkative, and you make a friend really easily. That shouldn't ever be a criticism, because actually that's going to become your little mini superpower almost, you know. And then I think for girls as well, you know, I'm of that generation where girls were bossy, you know, and I was bossy, and I'm like, actually, you know what, I was leading stuff, and make peace with that. So, so somebody had said to me, I've got to do one of these leadership things through a previous job, and somebody had said to me, Cecilia, you need to be really careful actually, because whether you intend to or not, you lead people. So either think about it and lead people constructively, or you're going to just lead people in a really unhelpful way. Like if you throw up the head and go storm off in a huff, you'll take the room with you. And I wasn't aware of that, you know. So I am conscious then about thinking, actually turn up, be present, you know, bring something constructive to it. If you're not going to be in that space, then just be really honest and say, listen, actually I think I'll step out, or this isn't for me, you know, rather than sitting getting really negative about something.
I think it is a really great observation that someone, you know, did make that and say that, because that's a really empowering thing to say. You know, you might not realise it's about yourself, but here's how you impact people. So be intentional about how you do that and carry that responsibility. And it definitely sounds like that is something that you do and have taken on.
It's like my mum would say, you know, like just even, you know, people would have turned up, but I would have brought a random group of people to our house, you know, whenever we were kids, and it was like, I didn't set out to do that, but it was just like, well, what are you doing tonight? I don't know. Well, do you want to come to ours? Okay, fine. And suddenly there was just this group of people, you know. So if you're naturally somebody who gathers people and can do that, and then use it for good, you know. So I suppose maybe all of that. But I wish I had made peace with who I was earlier in my life, because it would have made it a lot easier, you know, like it really would. But maybe you wouldn't.
Well, that's it. I know I asked that question, and I appreciate that it is a dual, because you wouldn't be who you are now if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through. But making peace with yourself, I think, is that's a good thing to be able to pass on to young people now.
Absolutely.
Is, you know, get to know yourself and make peace with that, and develop and obviously grow. But you are who you're going to be. You know, that's all in there.
There's a lot of things, like I remember, like school weren't very good at working out what I was going to be or do. Like my careers advice was rubbish. I'm not sure if it's any better nowadays or not. But I do remember a teacher who did know me quite well, and she just said, Cecilia, I don't know what you're going to do, but you'd be a great manager of people. Right, and like I didn't even know I really don't think I knew what a manager was.
You know, teenagers don't really
get that. And yet that's what I ended up doing, and that's what I've been doing for the last, you know, yes, I'm a social worker at core, but that's what I've been doing for the last at least 12 years, if not longer. And I think that's interesting, because that was obviously in there. I didn't know it. So I think be curious about who you are. Think, you know, be open to thinking about, you know, and be open to the idea that you have strengths. I think there's a lot of like false sort of modesty, and I see it in girls, and I kind of, you know, and it's like, oh well, I can't do, and I don't, and no, just think about who you are, and then just if you accept it quicker, then you can just get on with your life.
But that's your contribution to the world.
Absolutely.
Is to know your skill and give it. You know, because if you hide it away, no one can benefit. And
you don't want a room full of me. That's the other thing I'm really clear about. So I'm married to somebody who is just very quiet, very laid back, and like anytime you do, you know, one of those wee quiz things, we are polar opposites. And that amuses people, you know. But I was saying, when I get home at the end of the day, I just want to sit quietly. Because that's, you know, and we work because we're very different. But there's no need for the world to have just multiples of multiples upon multiples of any one person.
No.
We're all needed with our own quirks.
Definitely.
So yeah. But I didn't really talk. I suppose I've ended up talking about lots of things.
That's fine.
We we had talked a wee bit at the start about whether there were things that people might want to help with or be part
please.
of.
That'd be good to share.
I suppose that what I didn't touch on and what's really current, like we're filming this just as Afghanistan is kind of spiralling out of control, and people are really conscious about the fact that we will have newcomers potentially coming to Northern Ireland. So one of the services I manage has been part of the Syrian Welcome Programme, and we've been part of welcoming hundreds of Syrians over the last 5 years, and we have a role that's called an integration volunteer. So there might be somebody who's watching us, Lynn, out there, who is thinking, like, I would love to be part of welcoming a refugee, and I'd love to spend a bit of time with them. And it's you don't have to have any particular skills. You just have to be somebody who's willing to get alongside somebody, and just be patient, I suppose, and help them when they're learning their English. Maybe maybe if you're into cooking, you cook alongside them, or if you're into making something, make something alongside them. If you've got kids, you can do play dates, whatever. But if people are interested in that, we'll maybe put a wee link.
We'll put a wee link on the
Facebook
post
for folk.
That'd be great.
And then what I'll do is, we're hoping, Barnardo's are hoping that we'll be part of any Afghan settlement scheme for Northern Ireland. So if there are opportunities that come up, I'll let you guys know.
That'd be brilliant.
And certainly if we have folk coming to Carrick, we'll
get the word out.
We'll get the word out and do that, So, but there's, hopefully there'll be plenty of opportunities. And I suppose, like I always just say to people, go and have a look at our website and see, and if you're interested in, because working with refugees is maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but you might, for example, want to provide a bit of care for a disabled child, give them a short break. You might want to be involved in fostering. There's all sorts of things out there. So, and I suppose if somebody was really interested, then you can always put them in touch with me.
And so that would be looking up just Barnardo's website.
Yeah, Barnardo's Northern Ireland. Type up Barnardo's Northern Ireland, or follow us. Have a look at us on Twitter, or you'll see the types of things that we do. Or if somebody's just thinking, I don't really know what Barnardo's does, but maybe there's something there for me, I'm more than happy for you to put somebody in touch with me.
That's lovely. Thanks very much.
I know you've got a good bunch of people in your church, so that'll be good. Lovely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your heart.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
It's been lovely to hear.
Yeah.
And learning more that we have in common.
I know. There's quite a lot. It starts to get a bit weird after a while, doesn't it? But I think it's just good. It's good to know that there's lots of people out there who are just trying to bring good, good stuff to our area, isn't there? Yeah.
That's great.
So,
well,
thanks.
Thank you everybody for listening along, and we think we're near the end of our conversations because we think we're going to be back in person soon. So, but you can look back over all of our conversations on our YouTube channel, and do look at the link that's in the post to find out a little bit more about what Barnardo's doing, how you might be able to get involved and share it with your friends. So thank you very much everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.